A question that I ask myself when analyzing rights and what the nature of rights are and where they come from and who decides what they are and whether or not they're artificial constructs or things that are conferred to us somehow by some external force or entity. A question that I ask myself is whether or not animals have rights. And this is a topic of conversation that's been posed by numerous articles that I've been reading up on lately. One of these articles is titled, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of Kanji the monkey, which was, I believe, a bonobo chimpanzee can cook his own meals, even cooking his own hamburgers and things of that nature, and watch his own TV. And people are astounded by this, I guess, what apparently is a genius level monkey and all of the things that he can do. And it's really raising questions as to the degree of sentience that these creatures are endowed with. And there's another article in there debating the merits of whether or not it's appropriate to label dolphins, cetaceans, orcas, and killer whales, and even blue whales and sperm whales, whether or not it's appropriate to label them as persons or beings, if you will, whether or not it's appropriate to extend to them the status of sentient being. And in doing so, we will have to make room for rights, codes of conduct that must be maintained, a etiquette that must be maintained when dealing with these creatures that have kernels of awareness somewhere in their brains and their minds. And I think this highlights one of the points that I've made about rights and where they come from. And as you know, if you've seen my videos on natural rights, I don't believe that there are rights that derive from nature or God or any kind of external force. I believe that they are standards of etiquette that human beings have erected, have created, have dreamt up, if you will. Standards of behavior that are conducive to our survival as a species and are conducive to safeguarding sentience. And I believe this is why we're starting to now ask ourselves the question, especially in the developed nations and pretty much only in the developed nations, whether or not these animals with semi-sentient capabilities should have rights, a etiquette that we have up until now only extended to the human species. Notice that we never ask ourselves the question whether or not arachnids deserve the right to life or the natural right to this or that, or whether or not crows or turkey vultures or what have you, or even things that are a bit more sentient. Notice that the main candidates for this extension of rights are the primates, the great apes, and the cetaceans. Although there are animals, maybe elephants, for example, that are a bit less aware, admittedly, in my opinion. And of course, we can never actually know this until we're able to go inside these creatures' minds and decipher what it is they're thinking. And one day science might provide to us that opportunity, but as of yet, it remains a mystery to us. But notice we talk a lot less about the rights of elephants or a rhinoceros or a hippopotamus or creatures that might have a good degree less awareness, but probably have something going on there. I mean, parrots, parakeets, and African gray parrots. These creatures live like 80 years and some say are pretty intelligent. Cephalopods, of course, not anywhere near as intelligent as a dolphin, but I think it's not just the fact that these creatures are a good deal less intelligent and a good deal less aware, if they're aware at all, than a cetacean or a primate or a great ape. I think there's another aspect to this that isn't talked about, and that's the fact that these species are some of the closest species that resemble us, that remind us of us. The primates, of course, are very close. We share a good portion of our DNA with the chimpanzee, and of course the dolphins. Well, the cetaceans, dolphins in particular, I think, but killer whales and these cetaceans that we keep in captivity for the purposes of our entertainment. They, of course, they bring us enjoyment. They bring us entertainment. They seem to have an advanced level of awareness, possibly second only to the great apes and ourselves. We like them. I mean, we like dolphins. We have a connection to these cetaceans, and they seem to be able to derive enjoyment from our presence, and we certainly derive enjoyment from their presence. And we love to see them jump out of the water in apparent enjoyment, playfulness. These are signs of intelligence. We've seen these creatures, dolphins in particular, band around a injured member of their species, a dolphin that has a broken jaw or a jaw that isn't working and that can't feed itself and can't acquire food for itself. And we've seen these creatures actually keep them alive for extended periods of time, even years after the injury occurred, up until their death. And this shows a capacity for maybe even a form of primitive love. Love being, just as it is in humans, a biochemical reaction, but it's important to us nonetheless. It's certainly something that we perceive to be a sign of intelligence. And so we ask ourselves, if these creatures are able to have this awareness, then is it ethical? Is it right? Is it just to lock them up in pens and make them splash out of the water for a couple of fish and our entertainment? And is it correct to lock up chimpanzees and gorillas in cages for our enjoyment? And so, out of thin air, we create a new standard or a new definition of rights that can now be applied to the rest of the animal kingdom. Just because. I mean, we just make it out of thin air. And as I've said, my opinion is that we create rights to safeguard our species because we believe our species to be a step above the rest of the animal kingdom. And now that science is revealing to us that these animals may indeed be a lot closer to our level of sentience than we thought, we are now making up these rights again in order to adhere to the new information that we're coming across. But they are made up. I mean, there's nothing there that is giving these creatures rights. And as a matter of fact, if the human species didn't exist, nobody would even be there to ask whether or not these creatures have rights. That's one of the biggest indicators of whether or not something is man-made or if something just exists in nature, whether or not it would exist without us there. Nobody would even have uttered the word right. The concept couldn't even be understood by the rest of the animal kingdom. This indicates to me that it most certainly is something that we've dreamt up, that we've made up, and that's okay, and I'm fine with that. But human beings, in our infinite arrogance, we've decided that it's okay now to believe our own bullshit. Rights are not real. A hypothetical scenario. We believe, because of our supremacy in terms of the capability for sentience, we believe that this entitles us, more so than any other species, to the right, the human right. We even call it a human right. When we talk about extending these rights to cetacea or primates, we talk about extending to them human rights. But the reason we created the right in the first place is because we believe, and I think rightly so, that in comparison to any creature on planet Earth, we possess a far more advanced ability to perceive, a far more advanced faculty of awareness. So that entitles us to, quote, rights. Now, if animals truly had rights, and if there was truly some sort of right that human beings respected and considered real and not considered breachable when convenient for us, we wouldn't eat animals. We wouldn't eat, I'm sure somebody somewhere has dined on primates, and somebody somewhere has dined on cetaceans, and we've hunted cetaceans throughout our history as soon as the technology became available. As soon as we became sufficiently seafaring as a species, we decided to begin to hunt whales for their blubber and for ambergris and what have you. So as soon as this becomes convenient for us, these so-called rights, if animals truly have them, if they're conferred by some otherworldly power, or if they're conferred through nature, this nonsense on stilts that's been propagated to this natural rights business, if they're conferred somehow through nature, we wouldn't be eating these animals, would we? Rights are something that make us feel secure. And again, in our arrogance, we've designated these rights to our species first and foremost, because we are the most advanced of the species that are to be found on this planet. Let's say, hypothetically, an alien race descends on planet Earth tomorrow, and they possessed a level of sentience and awareness vastly superior to ours. And this is 100% possible. In fact, if other alien species exist, it's most likely probable that they have a higher intelligence than us. If they were able to find our planet and traverse the vast cosmos of space to get there, it's most likely that they have a level of intelligence and awareness that we can't even grasp. It's like trying to explain to a creature living in a two-dimensional world and existing there for his entire life. It's like trying to explain up and down to them when all they've ever known was left and right. So yes, a species that could locate our planet, determine that there are sufficient resources that they can benefit from, and then at the same time find out that there's a sentient species, a primitively sentient species in comparison to them, and then traverse the cosmos to get here would most likely be incredibly almost astronomically more intelligent than us. And so, let's say that this alien race descended on our planet in their warp drive or whatever, and let's say that they had a taste once, once the first conflict between us and them erupted. Let's say they found out they had a taste for human flesh. Now, according to our own logic, it would be just and right for this species to then harvest us, put us in pens and cages, and breed us for the purposes solely, the sole purpose of eating us, of consuming us for their own sustenance. Of course, they're so much more intelligent than us. Why not? And that's how we look at animals. The gap between our level of sentience and their level of sentience is such that we don't even. I mean, obviously they don't want to die. Obviously, things like cows that we harvest for beef, they can feel fear, they can feel pain, they can feel abuse. On some level, they must know that there's something wrong with being shacked up, connected to a machine, where they're harvested for their milk and shot up with growth hormones to make them nice and plump for their human masters. On some level, they must yearn to be out on the open pasture somewhere, as they were for probably millions of years before we came along and domesticated them. Anyway, this raises a lot of questions, and feel free to discuss. Wish I could talk more about this, but it's getting a bit late. Thanks for listening.